Hello everyone, you're welcome to this edition of The Inside on Equinox Television. I am Bable Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we're going to take a critical look at the human rights side of the socio-political and security crisis hitting the Republic of Cameroon, notably in the northwest and southwest regions of the country with the deepening Anglophone crisis, but also in the far north region with Boko Haram militants who have recently been intensifying the atrocities in that part of the country. We will talk about the way out of the socio-political crisis, but we'll also talk about the arrest and detention of political leaders in the Republic of Cameroon. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest in this edition of the program is a senior human rights defender. He is the chairman of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms of the Republic of Cameroon. Dr. Chemuta Divine BANDA, you're welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you, Jonathan.
Before we get into the core of the program, I want you to tell us what are the core missions of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms as a human rights defender. What are its core missions?
Yeah, Jonathan, in keeping with law number 2004/016 of the 22nd of July 2004, we have 7 core areas in our mission statement, including consultation, observation, evaluation, dialogue, consultation, promotion, and protection in matters of human rights. And you see that in those core areas, dialogue takes a central position.
The commission has been existing since 2004. What has it been doing for all these years as far as human rights issues in Cameroon are concerned? Because we have noted over the years that the violation of human rights, the abuse of human rights have been on the rise.
Jonathan, 2004 is the year that the law was enacted and promulgated. But the functioning of the commission put in place by that law was not until late 2006, because we had to take time to sign a decree of application of the law and then take time to select people who could be appointed, who fitted the conditions outlined in the law. It took us time, and it was not until late 2006 that, yes. And when they were appointed in 2006, of course, they could not start working until they take the oath of service. The law requires that we take the oath of service. The National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, it must be understood clearly by the public, is an independent institution of the state. And so you may ask the question, if it is independent and it is of the state, how is it independent? The truth is that it is an independent institution of the state of Cameroon. When they say independent, it means that it is not a partisan institution. It's not there to support one political party or the other. It is not there to receive instructions from government. That means it is independent from government. It has to act independently. Set up in keeping with the Paris principles. The Paris principles concerning the setting up of independent national human rights institutions. We are an independent national human rights institution of status A. That means set up fairly in keeping with the Paris principles, which require independence, it requires autonomy in action, it requires to be properly resourced so that it could carry out the functions allowed by the law, given to it by the law. And so we had to take an oath of service before the three arms of government, before the administration, before justice, and also before the Supreme Court. The three arms of government were there when we took the oath of service. If you look behind here, you see the members on the day of their swearing in. There's a picture there. So we are sworn in officials, and we swear in to work honestly without fear or favor, maintain our independence, and working for the general interest. So, you are asking what we've been able to do since since we were sworn in. I will tell you that we've been very active in nearly all the core areas of our mission statement. We had to move strategically. Concerning the promotion of human rights, we worked on a national program for the teaching of human rights, which is now being used for the teaching of human rights from the primary school level through secondary to the tertiary levels. I mean, even professional schools, medical schools, military academies, and so on. They have a program for the teaching of human rights so that they can understand human rights. You cannot promote and you cannot defend human rights if you do not know it. So we had to start by teaching it. Secondly, the aspect of protection. We've been doing our best to receive complaints from people when their rights are violated. And then we have been investigating cases. And then, of course, you find us at building sites when communities complain that in an attempt to carry out development projects, their rights are being violated. That means their lands are taken and they are not compensated. We go there to see how we can mediate. And also, concerning the way that the workers are treated, are they fairly treated? Our reports, we produce quarterly reports, which really present our action in the field. And every year we prepare an annual report highlighting our activities and also highlighting the state of human rights in Cameroon. So that's as far as the promotion and the protection are concerned. And then, of course, concerning consultation, we played a very active role in consulting with various stakeholders at the upsurge of the crisis in Cameroon, beginning with the Boko Haram invasion in the far north, when there was misunderstanding and lack of cooperation between our defense and security forces, and we went to the field, intervened, and consulted with the leaders of the defense and security forces and the governor, and then also consulted with the population, telling the population that we could not succeed to fight the foreign enemy if the population were not giving support to the defense and security forces. They understood us well. And we succeeded to a large extent in warding off the enemy. As far as consultation is concerned, we've consulted with various partners, cooperation partners, at the national level and at the international level in trying to ensure the promotion and protection of human rights. Even in drawing up the national program for the teaching of human rights, we consulted with ministerial departments that are responsible for education. We brought their secretaries general, worked with our senior staff here, and we developed the program, which was finally adopted and is being used. We consulted with all ministerial departments in the drawing up of our national action plan for the promotion and protection of human rights, which has been in use since 2015 and which should be ending by the end of this year. And so they're taking steps to evaluate. We now come to evaluation. We're already evaluating to see how far the objectives were realized so as to come up with an extension of that National Action Plan. So we consult quite a lot. And when it comes to consultation, the law requires that when draft bills have been prepared, especially those that would have an impact on human rights, we should be consulted. And of course, the ministerial departments in the course of drafting bills have consulted. The government has consulted us a number of times, but there are times that they've not consulted. And when we see that the law has already been voted and promulgated, and we see that there are shortcomings, we write. We take a look at the law, we write and propose that there should be amendments, and that has been taken into consideration.
Despite the work you have been doing on the ground to ensure the respect of the rights of citizens and even foreigners who are living in Cameroon, despite the work you have been doing to protect the rights of inhabitants of the different parts of Cameroon, citizens and foreigners, there has been a rise in human rights violations, human rights abuse. We have politicians, civil society leaders, human rights institutions, international non-governmental organizations that have continued to criticize the rising human rights violations in Cameroon. What explains that? Is it that your voices are not being heard? Is it that your proposals are not being considered?
There's a question we ask ourselves. When we see things going wrong, we ask ourselves, where have we failed in our core mission statement areas? We've been trying our best to promote and protect human rights in various ways, especially with the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions, which started in 2016. When we went to the field by early 2017, we asked ourselves the question, where did we fail? Because we had educated civil society organizations on how to exercise their right of freedom of expression in a peaceful manner, but being sure that you are radiant, that you are not docile, that you should speak out and really fight for your rights in a responsible manner, not in a way that you destroy things. If you do it in a violent manner, that's not in keeping with our teaching. So when we reached BANDA, we asked, where did we fail? When we were talking with civil society organizations, we said, we had already instructed you how to exercise your freedom of expression, public demonstration, and so on. Now, how is it that you got violent? Where, you know, the accusations and counter-accusations. They said they didn't start the violence was started by state authorities. Then when we also went to the governor and his entourage, we said, where did we fail? We, in teaching human rights, we emphasize the best way to maintain public order, because there's a law on the maintenance of public order. How is it that in the maintenance of public order, you didn't follow what you are supposed to do? How could you get violent and to the extent of doing harm? And then violence begets violence. When you got violent, that's what civil society is saying, that they started peacefully. By the time you became violent on them and shot and killed some of them, they had to try to defend themselves. So how did that happen? Well, the governor said no, that they had not really turned out to be violent on people, and that if there were any accusations about violence perpetrated by the defense and security forces, then there will be proper investigation, and those found guilty will be punished. And then I asked the question at the time. I said, but what are the military doing? We've seen so many military people around the conference center. Why they? If it is just public, the maintenance of public order, why is the place full of the military? And they scare people. Are they not supposed to? Are they really supposed to do the police? Can the police and the gendarmes not keep public order? Why should the military come in? Because we know, generally, we know that the military are trained to come. When they come in, they are coming in to fight, to kill, to destroy. They are not trained to reason. They are not trained to investigate. When you call the military in, you are saying now that reasoning has failed. Please, it is time to use violence. Come in and destroy. I said, but what? Then the governor told me that third category security forces were not really implicated in it. Even they were around. They were around just standing for purposes of reinforcement. But that they were properly instructed not to do harm on citizens. Because normally the military is there to protect citizens. The military is not there to shoot and kill citizens. But when we see things happening the way they are happening, you are right to ask the question, and we ask ourselves the question, where did we go wrong? And you are leading me to the other aspect of consultation. When you talk about consultation, you imply advice. That means if we are consulted, we have to advise government. National human rights institutions throughout the world advise government in matters of human rights. And we have been advising government.
You have been advising the government, but 3 years down, close to 3 years down memory lane, the socio-political and security tensions in the northwest region have been growing from bad to worse. The situation has been deepening with facts and figures, I want to say frightening facts and figures coming from national and international human rights organizations, and the authorities have continuously been saying the situation is under control. You have been to the crisis hit parts of this country, northwest region. Your eyes are on the ground. You have been to the southwest region. You've met people. You've talked with people. What's your own reading of the situation, of the actual situation on the ground?
Oh, you see, one is left doubting whether the reports that we write, that's what I expressed in my last open letter, whether the reports that we write and send to the head of state, because the law requires this commission to produce reports and send them to the head of state, and also send to other state authorities, including the president of the Senate, the president of the National Assembly, and the Prime Minister, and even the Minister of Justice. We do send our reports to them. So we ask ourselves the questions. We use even another strategy. In each one of these places, we have focal points. We instituted the whole idea of focal points, which are very much in vogue now. Focal points on human rights, who are designated by the various institutions, and then we trained we had working sessions with focal points, letting them to understand the importance of human rights, so that when we send files to authorities concerning human rights, they should pay attention to those files and bring them to the attention of the authorities. So we were asking ourselves whether the advice and the reports that we send, are they really always well exploited? But if they are well exploited, we are only one advisor of the state, and our advice is on human rights. The state has many other advisors, and so maybe that they consider advice from other advisors more pertinent, and they tend sometimes to ignore our advice, because there are two aspects in which we provided advice, and we've been really surprised to see that the advice was not taken on board in a timely manner. Because when we advise for the use of dialogue instead of violence in early 2017, if they had really embarked on inclusive and genuine dialogue, we should not have been where we are today.
When some international non-governmental organizations, including Human Rights Watch and International Crisis Group, presented some facts and figures on the situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, government accused those institutions of inflating facts and figures for personal gains, of wanting to destabilize the country, and so on. But you are a human rights institution, a national human rights institution. What's your own reading of the situation on the ground, as far as the number of the people who have been killed, the houses that have been burnt down, the of course the people who have been abducted, the people who have been displaced in their hundreds of thousands?
Jonathan, what we know is that the war, the civil war, has been devastating, and that it is difficult to determine the losses, given the fact that field investigations are not possible. But using modern technology, international human rights defenders might even get more information on what is happening in the field there than we have. Because even though we have offices in the regions concerned, it is difficult for them to get to the field and to carry out investigation. If it is difficult for commissioners, sworn commissioners, to carry out investigations in Yaoundé, because the working group on civil and political rights, they have tried repeatedly to carry out investigations, and the way has been bad for them. So if it is difficult to carry out investigations, it's difficult to assess and come up. And so we've written repeatedly saying that it is proper to end the violence, and can end the current violence, is what we call the civil war, and some people are arguing there's not a civil war. I do not know what you call armed confrontation between the defense and security forces of a country against many other armed groups. There are so many other armed groups, and they are fighting and killing not only the opposite camps, but killing innocent civilians who are caught in between. So there is a devastating war that's going on, and that's why we are crying for a ceasefire. We are crying for a ceasefire. The state has taken some steps to try to end it by creating a number of committees, including the disarmament committee, and you've listened to people criticize that maybe that the timing was not okay. But we've come in to say, right, we've already created some of these institutions to facilitate the work of these institutions. Please call for a ceasefire, because when you call for a ceasefire, you facilitate the disarmament. You facilitate the humanitarian assistance program. You facilitate many other things which we are trying to do, and you cannot even attempt now to say that you are trying to carry out reconstruction. No. You facilitate also dialogue. You can't have dialogue going on easily because people fear to travel for dialogue and for consultation.
The last cases of what has been qualified as gross human rights violations in the northwest and southwest regions of the country have attracted widespread condemnation from across the board. The killing of a 4-month-old baby in Muyuka, and of course the beheading of a history teacher of Government Bilingual High School Nitop in Bamenda, and other cases have attracted widespread condemnation, with accusations going towards opposite directions. You know, the mother of the child, the father, and other persons in the neighborhood in Muyuka accusing the military, and then the Minister of Communication says no, the separatist fighters committed the act. When you look at these recent atrocities committed in those two regions, what's your take about this situation and how government is responding to it as a human rights defender?
The sad thing about it is that is happening when we see some serious efforts being made at ending the crisis. When you find a prime minister who goes down to the field and is so much welcomed by the people, and he does his best to try to bring the situation to an end. But just shortly afterwards, you see things like those happening again. Yes, burnt down. Then there are two issues that you are raising here. What is my take on that? Every time that happens, what you find is accusations and counter-accusations. The truth is never really established. And sometimes you hear that a commission of inquiry has been set up, and you wait and wait for the results of the commission of inquiry. It's not forthcoming. People have raised it about the woman carrying a baby who was shot and killed in the far north. They've talked about the children, the students taken away at PSS in Queen and many other places, the burning down of Sagahat College and the Kumba District Hospital. Things like those are happening. And when they happen, you just have accusations and counter-accusations, and you never can investigate and establish the truth. And that's why we, at the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms, feel that the truth about the atrocities will not be known until there is a ceasefire, and then there is a call for genuine dialogue which is not aimed at identifying the wrongdoers and punishing them. The military, they are there in their number. The defense security forces, they are there in their number. But each time it happens, you do not see them capture a person and try that person so as to get facts, more facts, to clarify the situation. Instead, you have the impression that some of the people who are even captured alive are killed. When they are killed, what do you call that? You call that summary executions, because the people have not gone through a trial system, a fair trial system, to establish their guilt before they are killed, before they are sentenced according to the law. But if you just see atrocities committed, and you cannot ascertain who is committing the atrocities, especially with the multiplicity of armed groups, not only in Northwest and Southwest, but in many other parts of the country, you have armed groups.
Some critics think that before a statement like the release issued by the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson, there should be an on-the-ground, on-the-scene investigation, proper investigation to establish the truth. But the Yaoundé administration simply indicated that some experts analyzed a video that went viral on social media that concerning the killing of the 4-month-old baby, and a conclusion was drawn from that. They were killed, or the child was killed by separatist fighters who were hunting the father of the child, who was an ex-fighter, even though he told us he wasn't an ex-fighter. The wife told us her husband has never been an ex-fighter or a fighter before. And then information is sent out concerning this particular case, accusing separatist fighters and drawing conclusions on the matter.
That calls for independent investigation into the matter, because it will be difficult for us to establish the truth. We don't know whether what government is saying is true or whether what the parents of the child are saying is true. Because that's what has been going on for long. When it happens, you have the accusations and counter accusations. But I think that for the credibility of our government, it is necessary to take enough time and carry out a proper investigation before making statements. Because if you make statements and the statements are challenged afterwards, you see, in my position, acting as a human rights defender, I have come a loggerhead with a Minister of Communication before, not the current one. The Minister of Communication, the former Minister of Communication, issued a press statement condemning Amnesty International outrightly. Then I issued, with this commission, not I want to say I, this commission issued a press statement saying that Amnesty International was playing its role. Amnesty International is a human rights defender. And when information is brought to a human rights defender about the violation of human rights, that human rights defender brings that information to the suspected persons, the people who are suspected to have violated the human rights. And he considers the people as suspects, and he's asking for information that could really clarify the situation. So if the various international human rights organizations call attention of the government to human rights violations, allegations of human rights violations, and sometimes not just allegations, perception of human rights violations, because they are able to capture some of the things using satellite means to see what is happening. If they send, you have to take time, analyze, and respond in a very responsible manner. I think that many people have appreciated what the governor of the Northwest has done in the case of the Alabuka incident. Yes, because he didn't come out to accuse. Yeah, he said a proper investigation will carry out and the perpetrators would be punished in keeping with the law. I find him consistent, because in February 2017, when I brought allegations to his attention and his entourage, that is the step he maintained, that investigations will be carried out and the perpetrators will be punished according to the law. His problem, which cannot be wholly blamed on him, is the carrying out of the investigation. If he requests that investigation should be carried out, and the people who are supposed to carry out are not cooperating to carry out the investigations and bring out the result, we cannot blame the governor. The governor's approach is what many people will appreciate, and we think that it's a governor representing government. Government should show the light. Government should desist from condemning quickly without knowing. Because it was about the same thing with the burning of the Kumba District Hospital. We at this commission, we are still waiting to get the truth. Who burnt the Kumba District Hospital? But because the armed groups are saying that it was the Defense and Security Forces, and government is saying that it was the armed groups. It will remain like that for long. And we will never get the truth until there is a ceasefire, and then there is the institution of dialogue that is inclusive and which is sincere and honest, dealing with all the issues without giving in a taboo, placing a taboo on any of the issues. Because if we are talking for reconciliation, we should really get to the root of the matter and then come out with proposals that would lead to lasting solutions to.
When a child of 4 months is killed and a teacher beheaded, what are the signals that can be?
Jonathan, I've decried that already. We have said that our humanity is in question. Are we really still human, because we seem to take delight in the destruction of human life. The destruction of human life does not seem to mean much to many people now in Cameroon. Because I listen to hate speech in the media. I listen to people encouraging, and I don't want to call names, but you know, people encouraging that the best thing is to intensify and clean them up. That means when you are asking for cleaning up, that's genocide. You are saying this to clean them up. When a thing happens within a locality and you order the defense and security forces to go and clear off the place, and they go and do what they've done, that is really worrisome. We're asking ourselves, are we still human beings? We are behaving now more or less as if we've lost our humanity. And it is not surprising that you find some foreigners, I don't want to call names, foreign heads of state, regretting the fact that Africans in general are such that when you give them arms to defend themselves, they take the arms and they are killing each other with those arms. It's sad. It's really sad.
When you visited the crisis hit northwest and southwest regions, the people you met, what were they saying? What did they tell you? What were their opinions about the ongoing situation?
Yeah, Jonathan, we listened to them fully and we came back with proposals of improving understanding and cooperation and living together in Cameroon. And those proposals were many, because we had the grievances of youth and women who considered that they were not sufficiently included in decision making, and they were also excluded in many practical ways. They were jobless, and their joblessness sometimes leads to the commission of little crimes. And when you commit little crimes, you are bundled and sent to prison, and the prisons are full. You have overpopulation in the prisons, and you have war crimes there, you have the drug issues. So the youth were saying that they need to be encouraged. They need to be included in decision making so that they can figure out, contribute on ways and means of ensuring that our youth will be usefully employed. And that is happening. We included that. The women also complained that they were left out. So they said the women and the youth should be included, and that is happening. But concerning political issues, very many people feared indulging in a discussion of political issues just because of the prohibition. Yes, because they had said dialogue was authorized, but that there should be no dialogue on two key issues, including separation and federalism. That was before the PM went to BANDA. But even there, when we went up, some were bold enough to come back to that issue of federalism, even though the head of state has said he didn't want any discussion on that. Some of the persons that we met expressed their desire that the federal arrangement would be useful because it would guarantee sufficient autonomy for them to be able to carry out their development the way they were used to doing. They had been used to their community development without waiting for instructions to come either from Lagos or to come from London. They had been used to doing quite a lot, and sense of community development was highly developed. But for long, Yaoundé, which replaced Lagos and replaced London, now decided to make decisions on nearly everything. You heard the Dean of the Senate cry out. There's no reason why matters of education, health, agriculture, and many others should be decided in Yaoundé. Those are things that can be left with a regional setup, and the regional setup which will sufficiently empower the local government areas to deal with most of those things. And examples abound in the world. There are so many examples of a properly decentralized systems that work. But we seem to fear decentralization. And we seem to equate federalism with division. Federalism, to the best of my knowledge,
which is not the case, of course.
To the best of my knowledge, would instead mean coming together. When we say let us federate our efforts, that means let's bring our efforts together. But there are different units that are working and federating. The whole world is a federation.
Have you been received by the head of state? I mean, the commission. Recently, we heard you say that you have requested to meet him to discuss the Anglophone crisis to no avail.
So far, not been received. So far, not been received. We are hoping. We are thinking that the commission was not set up just to remain like that. That in the face of critical matters like this, and also considering the proposals that we're making with respect to dialogue, we were thinking that, as I expressed in my letter, when you consider the composition of the people here, Jonathan, this commission is composed of people representing the 10 regions of Cameroon, composed of people representing various professional entities in Cameroon. You find even high-ranking lawyers of the Supreme Court, they are here. You find top-ranking politicians like those of the Senate and the Parliament, they are here. You have top-ranking leaders of trade syndicates, they are here. Top-ranking journalists, they are here. University professors are here. The diplomats are here. So if you bring this, even the Medical Council is represented here. The Bar Council is represented here. If you select these people, 30 of them in number, and they come from all the regions of the country, and they are interested in the general interest. Then when they speak in the general interest, who is pushing their advice aside? Somebody is not bringing this to the attention of the head of state. And that's why we opted for an open letter, so that at least when the head of state, when it appears in newspapers, you have newspaper reports on a daily basis, summarized and given. It's sensitive. It is sensitive to write an open letter to the head of state. So we wanted to really call attention to that.
You want to put together all these human and, of course, material resources at the disposal of the commission, the expertise to solve the Anglophone crisis, yes. And you're requesting the head of state to give you permission to solve this crisis. How do you want to solve it? If you were given the permission.
Well, given permission, we'll solve it through dialogue. You do not, when you bring people together who are spokespersons chosen by the various parties in conflict, when they come together, and they are properly moderated, they will be able to come out with proposals that will be acceptable to everybody. The thing is that we are not meeting around the conference table. People will tell you don't know. The head of state has been encouraging dialogue all along. No. The head of state has been encouraging consultation. People going down to talk with the population. Also allowing for limited dialogue conducted only by the administration, that ministerial departments, to try to sort out the problems of education and to sort out the problem of
the lawyers.
The lawyers. So, but no attention has been paid. People have feared to take on in a discussion that is relating to political problems. Do we have a governance problem? Where we have a governance problem, they fear to tackle that. And in my writings, I've indicated that Parliament ought to have initiated dialogue that would tackle the political issues. But you yourself have seen that Parliament has not initiated anything. And we've written.
The Social Democratic Front has tried to no avail to put the matter on the table at the level of the lower and the upper houses of Parliament through the MPs and the senators. And the Commission, since 2017, as well as other national and international non-governmental organizations and human rights defenders, politicians, civil society leaders have been calling for an all-inclusive dialogue. And before now, government said, we are not going to discuss anything on the form of the state, even though this was repeated some few days ago by the Minister of Territorial Administration. The Prime Minister said in BANDA, government is now ready to discuss everything but cessation. Is that an inclusive dialogue?
That's a very important development in the whole dialogue issue. The fact that the head of state and government, they would no longer be hostile to a discussion of an issue on federalism, because that's the implication of that. Because he limited himself that what is still not acceptable is cessation. But when you listen to people talking, they say no. When they say an inclusive dialogue, that means bring even your enemies to the dialogue table. If you think that those who are opting for secession are enemies, bring them to the dialogue table. The human beings are such that when people speak and convince them, they can change their mind. When you just keep them away from the dialogue table, that's still problematic. But already that's a sign of progress, that the only issue that is excluded is secession. And you are speaking, Jonathan, to somebody. Since I've been writing, I cannot hide it. Even if you are reading, you would have known that I wrote at one time, from the beginning, that I'll be one of those really who would fight vehemently for the preservation of our triangle. But that I also fight very hard for better governance. We are not properly being governed. There's a problem, and there's a problem between those who are governing and those who are being governed. And that problem should be addressed. And I have come out repeatedly that addressing it, and a good approach in addressing it would be ensuring some reasonable decentralization. And I've tried to let people understand that when we're talking about decentralization, we mean effective decentralization. We're not talking about decentralization that has been practiced so far, with people complaining all the time that their elected governors, elected mayors are prevented from doing their work by appointed government delegates. I believe that the state can always exercise supervisory powers over the work of governments at the lower levels. The federal government or the national government can always exercise supervisory powers over, let me qualify it. I would say inspect, control and inspect what is happening within government at the lower levels. That's local area government and then regional area government. You can always control to make sure that they are acting in conformity with national norms, where the purpose of your inspection will not be to interfere with their work, but to make sure that they are acting in conformity with national norms. And then when they are not acting in conformity with national norms, you call their attention to that. Because a national or a federal government should deal with national norms concerning education, health, and other things, but allow the provision of services in those areas to be handled at the lower levels of government, at the regional levels and the local government areas. It's not that you are in the Yaoundé to be taking care of about the building and the staffing of schools in all the 360 local government areas of Cameroon. The local government areas should be able to do something. And if they cannot do something, a regional government is nearer them to assist them do the thing. And you, the national or federal government, you make sure that you are controlling, you are controlling and inspecting to ensure that norms are being respected. And you, the national or federal government, will make sure that you take care of the security of the country, the borders of the country, and also take care of the ports of entry, so that nothing dangerous comes in to affect the citizens of the country. But don't seek to do everything, control everything from the national or federal capital.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week.
The Guardian Post reports that the killing of the 4-month-old baby in Muyuka is unacceptable. The Advocate newspaper says emotions let loose over killing of infants in Muyuka on May 20, 2019. The Sun qualifies the incident, which attracted shock condemnation, as a gruesome act. As reported in the Median, suitcase of demands of the Northwest and Southwest, Bia's response awaited after John Gute's fruitful mission. The Scoop: the road to peace. Prime Minister John Gute lays foundation in the Northwest and Southwest. An initiative rubbished by another member of government, Territorial Administration Minister Paula Tanganji, as reported by the Post Weekender. Eden newspaper, 20th May in the Southwest and Northwest region, massive boycott, gun battles reign, but Kambe and Messager defy separatists. The Guardian Post, ugly scenes mar celebration in Anglophone regions. The Horizon, Tibor Nash says sanctions could be imposed on Cameroon if dialogue fails.
Welcome back. Mr. President, earlier you indicated that you did some significant work, the commission in the far north region of the country, bringing together or enhancing collaboration between the security and defense forces and the population, and that contributed to government's effort to push back the Boko Haram militants. But in recent weeks and months, there has been an upsurge of attacks and atrocities committed by the militants in the far north region of the country. What explains that?
We played an active role in ensuring understanding and cooperation between the defense and security forces in the far north, and then the population and civil society organizations. You know, there had been a lot of complaining that the human rights were being violated as a result of the Boko Haram incursion. That it appeared that security and defense forces took advantage of that situation, and then they were repressing the rights of citizens to an unacceptable degree. And that's, they were arresting so many suspects and then detaining them under conditions that were not acceptable. So there was some hostility between the population and the defense and security forces. Well, we went up repeatedly in 2014, and we succeeded to create an atmosphere of understanding and cooperation between the security forces and the population, emphasizing that in the face of a foreign enemy, it was absolutely necessary for the population to cooperate with our defense and security forces so that we could ensure success. I can tell you that if you ask the defense and security forces, the leadership, they will acknowledge the role that the Commission played in that. And so things got better, but unfortunately, of recent, there has been a resurgence of Boko Haram attacks, and they have had occasion to make an observation on that I felt that it was as a result of, you know, Boko Haram is very alert to what is happening. They are trying to conquer territory and to stay there. So they see the unfolding of events. If Boko Haram realized that a lot of attention had been deviated from the north, the far north region, and that focus was in other parts of the country, they could come back again to the far north and try to create problems. And I think that's what was happening. So the earlier we learn to stay at peace, Cameroonians learn to live at peace with themselves, the better they'll be able to tackle foreign enemies who are coming to create problems.
We're going to take some interviews now, and we'll be right back in some few minutes.
I don't come out, I don't wash kitchen for afternoon. I sleep for quite a very well. This door be there down, then the window be there open. So as I say, when I go backside, I go cook. Only as I cook, I want those come out in my camp for house. At the end, I say, they say, I'm okay, they come. Say, I'm they come. So when they are confused, I won't say no cup water for my hand. When they saw they don't already reach right for door yet. Only as I calculate, if I won't say I want to take that picking, the fee shoot me and the picking. So now when I run, I go, I leave the picking. I don't say not small picking. They don't feel do it nothing. Now where I go. Only as the gun we don't they think if you don't cool. Only for me to come back, say I can't collect the picking. Now where I can't see my bad body.
I see this worker, they never pay me, say for how many, for how long I don't be, they never pay me. But the stress I don't pay pass through. Only for say my car bring cash with grandpa. I make 4 days. And my father is a killer.
For my brothers and sisters, parents who are in the bushes, I pray that God should touch their hearts. We are not happy that they are there, especially our parents who are hiding in the bushes. Let our brother see the cry of their mothers. Women are peacemakers in the society. Let them turn and see the cry of their mothers so that they will try to drop out their weapons. To calm down, let us have that dialogue to make sure that there is peace in our nation.
We are pleading to our boys who are inside the forest. We are pleading, kneeling down to them that they should come back home. Come back and help their parents so that our life should be the way it was abnormal in the past. The effort that we are doing is coming at a time when the Prime Minister visited Southwest, and from his own speech we think that peace will reign in the Southwest and Dian especially. Dian has its river Nile, which is palm. In that palm we cannot live. Any person perpetrating inside palm, we are pleading the person to off his hands and leave river Nile to reign.
There has been a general outcry and the condemnation of human rights violation and abuse of human rights, abuse of the rights of political leaders in Cameroon, notably those who are now in detention, the leaders, allies, and militants of the Cameroon Renaissance movement who went out condemning and decrying what they call electoral hold-up, demanding for their victory in the October 7 presidential election, decrying the worsening situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, calling on government to arrest and prosecute those who are found guilty of having caused Cameroon to fail in the organization of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations and other issues. They were arrested and they are now in detention. What is the commission saying about this?
The arrests, you know, they've created a lot of concern as to the enjoyment of freedom of expression in Cameroon. And we intervened. We tried our best to intervene in order to get the facts, to understand, and at least to see whether the rights of people arrested in the first place, if they were arrested because of public demonstrations, then, you know, any human rights defender will say no, people have the right to openly demonstrate, but that when they're demonstrating, of course, they have to respect the rights of other people. When you come out to demonstrate, you do not come out to destroy the property of other persons. The purpose of your demonstration is to call attention to what is displeasing to you. And talking about calling attention, you know, we issued a statement after the elections. We issued a statement regretting we issued a statement appreciating the fairly peaceful conduct of that election, and then also regretting the fact that participation rate had been very low, especially in the northwest and southwest regions, because of the prevailing security situation. But we also, in that press statement, invited the political parties to take things as such and to work hard to prepare for next elections. Yeah, but I think the MRC might have had strong reasons to continue to come back to the election results. But they were not only out to march because of the hold-up, what they call the hold-up, they were out to march for other reasons. And if they were out to march to demonstrate their dissatisfaction with the way certain things had gone wrong, then they should have just been guided to make sure that they express themselves and go back to their homes without destroying any property. But they were arrested because it appears that the declaration to manifest had not been it had been rejected. So when it was rejected, if they went ahead to demonstrate, was it right for the administration to stop them from exercising what is enshrined in the Constitution? That's just an argument that they have, that the state has not got any legal basis for restricting a peaceful demonstration. What has the Commission done this far concerning the case of Maurice Kamto and the others? The first working group of the Commission has made repeated attempts, to visit them in detention places, and they have not been allowed because of complaints that the authorization of hierarchy was needed. And the hierarchy has so far not authorized. And it is strange to us because concerning those who were arrested in Nigeria and sent back, it took about a year. It took about a year before we were authorized to visit them. We are not happy at all that the Commission is being prevented from playing its normal role. We are out there to make sure that if people are arrested, if they are suspected of having committed any offenses, any crimes, they should be treated as suspects. They should not be tortured. They have rights. Suspects in this country have rights of visitations and so on. So we've tried different formula to do normal investigation in keeping with the law, or to carry out just normal visits to detention places where we do not need the assistance of a state council, but there has been a consistent objection to the commissioners of this commission to visit the detention places.
Dr. Chemuta Divine Banda, President or Chairman of the National Commission on Human Rights and Freedoms of the Republic of Cameroon, thanks for accepting to be our guest in this edition of The Insight.
Thank you for the invitation that you've given to me. I hope that I've tried to explain our role and our readiness to still play an active role in the search for a lasting solution to the crisis affecting our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for this edition.